and welcome back to another week of the Big Red of B Schneid Show. We brought Jim back. He's been kind of MIA for a while, I guess. How have you been, Jim?
I've been hauling a lot of branches.
Yeah, that storm that Lincoln, Omaha got hit with was incredible.
As old as I am, 65, I have never seen that much wind damage.
Yeah, it was. I think there
For
was definitely an F1
something
tornado.
that wasn't a tornado. So,
I think it was a tornado.
well,
But anyway, let's dive into it. Nebraska is in their third week of fall camp. You've been following the football team a little bit. I guess what is your takeaways of this team as they enter the final stages and get ready to prepare for Cincinnati?
I think Dylan's got a better group of targets this year.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it's night and day from what they had last year. I mean, Dane Key is a legitimate number one option. Of course, you return Ja'Cory Barney, and then just the depth of the freshmen, and then Isaiah Hunter you add in, guys that have been in the program such as Janier and Bonner, and then your receiving threats at tight end have to excite a Nebraska fan.
Yeah, they do, and I think that's going to open up the running game quite a bit too. And I think offensively, our line is better than it was, has more talent than last year. And definitely more depth.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the offensive line depth a lot, just you and I chatting. And when you think about a guy such as Gunnar Gatula, who came in last year after being thrown into action as a redshirt freshman and playing, I believe it was the final 9 games as a starting left tackle and holding his own. And now this year, he's kind of on the outside looking in to be in the top 5. That's where you got to feel good about the offensive line. I mean, you got arguably 8 to 10 guys that could be reliable potentially to play.
I thought Gatula was one of the strongest out of the offensive linemen last year. Definitely a good surprise.
Well, and he might slide over to right tackle. Rule was kind of mentioning that on last Saturday, how Pritchett and Gatula are battling for left tackle. Teddy Prohaska and Tyler Kanak are battling for right tackle right now. So, but they're kind of interchangeable. You're going to play your 2 best tackles, obviously. But as of right now, yesterday, we got the open media practice to see, and it still appeared that Teddy Prohaska is the current right tackle ahead of Tyler Kanak, and Elijah Pritchett is just ahead of Gunnar Gatula, from what I've seen.
All right. Well, let's hope Teddy can stay healthy the majority of the season, if not all of it.
Well, and yes, but maybe Teddy's the type of guy that they only play 40 snaps a game, and then a guy such as Tyler Kanak can spell him and give Nebraska another 20 to 30 snaps.
Well, that would be nice, and you know, that would improve the depth overall. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yesterday we can touch on some more of that, but let's talk about, we heard from Mike Ekeler yesterday, and then the Australian punter Archie Wilson. So kind of what was your takeaway from the special teams unit looking ahead to the first week?
Ekeler is pretty optimistic. And he's an enthusiastic guy. So, he claims to have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what, go ahead.
And discipline. I think that was one of the big words he used.
Well, he said that he thinks that this is the most disciplined team in America.
Right. I mean, that's probably a bit of an over-exaggeration, but
yeah, I mean, that's off-season football talk. But I mean, obviously, you want to hear that from a special teams coordinator, especially a special teams unit like Nebraska that has lacked anything but disciplined football the past decade.
Yeah. You know, if you clean up bad snaps on special teams last year, it wasn't the entire disaster that it turned out to be.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take a someone that's been to college for 12 years to know that. But but anyway, when you look at the snapping, he actually said, we're not where we want to be, but we'll get there with the snapping. I thought that was kind of interesting because he had high praise for the kickers, of course, Archie Wilson, the returners, the gunners. Now, let's talk about Archie Wilson because the dude, when he was asked about it, just smiled and said he's going to be a damn weapon. Dude's I mean, there hasn't been this much talk about a punter, I don't think, in Nebraska in my lifetime. You could say maybe a kicker with Alex Henry or
Alex Henry was quite
maybe Sam Foltz got a lot of talk.
Yeah,
because he was so good. But for a true freshman guy, it's incredible. I guess what's your takeaway from what you've heard from Ekeler and Archie Wilson both?
Well, first of all, I think Archie Wilson is Mr. Personality right now. I think everybody that knows him likes him and likes him a lot. And you can see the way he acts and the way he talks. He's a guy you just kind of want to hang around with. And he looks like he could probably come in and play a little bit of offensive or defensive line too. The boy's not small.
No, I mean, it does make you wonder Nebraska's options when, especially at the 1890 Big Red preview. You want to know who they had as the one of the punt shields?
Who
was Heinrich Harburg. So if you think about that, you'd have two guys that, because Archie Wilson, the former rugby player, in rugby, you got to be able to do it all. So he can, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and throw it as deep as a Dylan Raiola would, but the fake ability has got to be a nightmare for defenses. He can punt it with both feet. So he's got speed. So maybe if it is 4th and 1, you can trot out your punter. And if it's there, he can run and pick it up. But he also can punt on the run because that's his style. So, I mean, that's going to really screw up a team's return plan.
So you saw him at the press conference, right?
Yes.
How physically is he a pretty good sized kid? How tall is he? Would you guess?
I believe he's around 6'2", around there.
Okay.
He's filled out though. He doesn't look like an average punter. He's got the mass. You can definitely tell he's had some hits on him. Now that was in rugby. I know that you can compare football and rugby, but they are different games. And he wasn't being chased down by all Big Ten linebackers at the same time.
No, probably not.
So when he has somebody from Iowa that's going to go in the 1st or 2nd round chasing after him, or Michigan, whatever team you want to look at, I mean, that's a lot different than playing against the Aussies.
Yeah. That reminds me of watching Alex Henry run it. That was funny because they did not call a fake punt on that one that Alex Henry ran for it.
That was a little bit before my time. Well, of being able to reconcile. What game was that? Do you recall?
By golly. Almost think it was Oklahoma.
So that would have been in 08 or 09.
Yeah.
Or it wouldn't have been the Big 12 championship, would it have? In 2010.
Yes, I think it was.
You think it was then? Okay. Well, then I remember watching that, but I don't remember too much. Just a little kid. But anyway, let's talk about just the return game. So I thought we kind of had a good idea of what Mike Ekeler's looking for in his return game. Punt return and kick return are totally different when it comes to that. And last year, Mike Ekeler's unit had 27 punt returns and led the nation. I believe as a whole, they averaged around 15.5 yards per return. But kickoff returns, they only had 14. So Ekeler tends to, utilize the fair catch now because it's automatically going to be at the 25-yard line. But you look at the 27 punt returns. Could you imagine if Nebraska averaged 2 to 3 punt returns a game and gained 8 yards? That's 2.5 first downs.
Well, that's a big change from what we used to call ourselves Fair Catch University, because that's what they did. And there's times to do that, and times that they they fair caught a few of them that they shouldn't even have touched because they were going end zone bound. It looked like, or at least a good shot at it, rather than do a fair catch on the 3. But I think Ekeler seems to be going to be, his unit is going to be on your punt returns a lot more aggressive.
Well, and then
because that's what he is.
And Ja'Cory Barney said he's going to lead the nation in punt returning. And Ekeler said he loves that attitude from him. Now, it's going to be tough. I don't foresee Ja'Cory Barney leading the nation in punt returning. But I mean, when I was writing the story for on Barney, I was thinking, okay, well, if he can get to 8 yards, the last guy to do that was J.D. Spillman on at least 10 plus attempts. Then I think you got to feel good about yourself if you're a Nebraska fan.
Right. Yeah, Spielman was our last threat.
Well, and someone brought this up when I was sharing my article in the forum, was that pointed out DeMornay Pearsonell. And I forgot about in 2014, he had 34 returns and averaged 17 yards per return.
DeMornay?
Yeah, DeMornay Pearsonell.
DeMornay? Yeah, he did. And I think he ran one all the way back at the Iowa game too, in Iowa City.
And I was, I think Nebraska, where that was Bo Pelini's last game as head coach. Yeah, because they were down, I believe, a couple scores around maybe even 17 points, and then they wound up winning in overtime. But that was the turning point of that game, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah, and I was driving home, and I was listening to Iowa announcers. That was fun.
You were at the game.
No, I was driving home.
Oh, I see.
And driving home when I lived in Colorado.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the black shirts. So Nebraska's got Andrew Marshall in the secondary to pair with Zaire Wright, arguably the 2 penciled in corners, and then Buford and Hartzog are going to be your safeties, and Deshaun Singleton will be that safety that roves around. They kind of moved him over from just a old school strong safety to more so what Isaac Gifford was last year. How are you feeling about the secondary as where it sits? There's 25 guys on the roster, and there's some guys that are really pushing to get in that mix.
Still concerned a little bit about their size, their height.
Well, that's why they moved Hartzog and Buford to safety now. They both are going to be safeties.
Yeah. So,
to disguise it.
Right.
What my concern is that Cincinnati has an all Big 12 caliber tight end, and I don't think you want to match up Hartzog or Buford. I think that's a Singleton matchup.
Okay. I would agree.
I mean, because you have that 6'4" size, and now Singleton at Tuesday's practice, you could see he was in a green jersey, but it's more so precautionary. It seems like a lot of these veterans are kind of holding. I don't know how to feel about that necessarily with some of them. I mean, because you still want them to practice, but at the same time, you don't want them to get banged up.
Well, it's not as bad as one of our previous coaches that didn't even have them in pads most of the time. So,
that's not necessarily true.
Well, it's good talking points.
Yeah, I don't think they tackled really much, as from my understanding.
Right.
That was before my time of getting some access to the program, but so I guess I don't really need to comment on it. No. But
it's a rumor.
But another guy to watch, or some guys to watch, are in the secondary still are Donovan Jones, especially, who we saw in the bowl game playing corner. They have him repping at safety. Yep. So it seems like he'd be the first guy to go in at safety, if I had to guess. Maybe Justin Rhett. But the Jameer Khan, another transfer from an FCS school, kind of working in that nickel safety hybrid role. I think that he's going to make an impact. And
how about McGahee?
McGahee?
Yeah.
Well, he's an edge.
Right. But he was getting a lot of playing time last year and looked like a pretty solid player.
Yeah, I mean, Willis McGahee's going to be playing probably at least 60% of the snaps, I'd assume, this season.
Think so.
Well, because you got the nice thing about the linebacking room is that inside you got 7-year senior and Javen Wright, You also have, of course, Vincent Shavers, and then you bring in the SEC Player of the Year, Marquise Watson-Trent. So you're solidified on the inside, and then you at the edge, you got Deshaun McCullough coming in from Oklahoma, and then Willis McGahee. And Rule's been praising Jordan Ochoa from Colorado, who I believe he walked on, but he's making a name. But he also pointed out that these linebackers, they could play with two of the jack kind of rusher positions on the field at the same time. So I think you're going to see a lot of different fronts, I guess. And they aren't going to show them, obviously, until we get to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm going to be surprised how much they're. That will be an interesting game because Nebraska is going to try to not show very much at all, so that there isn't a lot of film. That's a big push right now.
I can maybe understand that, but I think if Nebraska and Cincinnati are tied in the second quarter, I think it's
now we got to open up.
You got to open it up. Yeah, I mean Cincinnati's. I know they went. I believe they were 4-8 or 5-7. I think they were 5-7 last year, but still,
we weren't that far off of that.
Well, Nebraska wasn't, but that's what I'm saying. They got some playmakers now. I think Nebraska on paper is up here versus Cincinnati, but still, it's a matter of you got to do what you got to do because you lose game one, and that's a long season. We've seen it before where it derails Nebraska's entire season.
So,
I mean, think if they would have won at Minnesota, Matt Rule's first year.
Right.
But we could talk about some single digits. Nebraska, or at least two more of them. Riley Van Poppel was awarded one, and these are player voted. And then Dane Key got his number 6 that he wore at Kentucky now on offense. So the defensive line trend of single digits continues. And it seems like Riley Van Poppel is going to be the guy to potentially step up and replace Ty Robinson.
How old is he? What year?
Redshirt sophomore. So Riley Van Poppel was one of the staples in Matt Rule's first recruiting class when he arrived. And he played a decent role as a rotator his true freshman year. And then last year, of course, they did the 4-game redshirt with him, which was tough. So I think that the question with the defensive line, more so the interior, is what are you going to get from Elijah Jeudy? I mean, they're banking on this guy. He was a highly recruited guy, didn't work out at Texas A&M, came into Nebraska, has played 2 years, and he's been a rotator. Can he step up and play 40 snaps a game or even 30 and be a force in the inside and stuff the run? That's yet to be seen.
Well, that's a big unknown.
But you have to feel good about Keona Davis, true sophomore guy, played solid role last year. That's a guy could be probably the best guy on the defensive line when it's all said and done.
Right. No, I agree.
What do you think, from your perspective, what do you think of Williams Nwaneri, former 5-star recruit, went to Missouri. Now he's in Lincoln getting paid a lot of money to be here, but he's got still some room to grow. I think it's more so of him just using his mental stuff, putting it all together. But a guy like that, you hear about guys like that all the time, especially as long as you followed the program.
I really hate to say, if he can find a mentor on this team, I think it will make a big difference to kind of drag him along.
And he ain't going to be necessarily interior. You'll see him off the edge more so. But, he's got the height, the speed, the weight. 6'7", 260 pounds, and the body fat on him is about as good as Nebraska's running backs. If not better.
No, that'd be good. Who was we had a couple last year of transfers that just never materialized. And I think things got in their head too. So we'll see if he can find if there was a Ty Robinson or something still on this team team to be a mentor to that kid, I think would help a lot. Let's see if somebody steps up.
You mentioned that. That's why I brought up Riley Van Poppel, because when he spoke last week, he brought up how Keona Davis specifically, but he was mentioning he's taken what Ty and Nash told him and he's relaying it now to these other guys. So maybe that culture is established there and it carries on.
And that's what we lacked. Quite frankly, that's what we lacked over these just couldn't make the big game happen. There, it was elusive.
Well, I think that's my biggest question when it comes to units this season. I feel actually pretty confident about Nebraska special teams. I think they're going to be solid. I'm not saying they're going to lead the nation, but I think they're going to be a solid unit. And you look at the offense, I project the offense to take a step. Now, I'm not saying they're going to take a leap, but they're going to take a step in the right direction. Now, the defense, though, are they going to regress or are they going to hold firm and be another top 25 defense?
Well, if we could get 10 more points a game out of our offense, the defense doesn't have to be quite so breathtakingly solid.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the offense. We kind of touched on the defense, but from your perspective, how do you feel about the running back room? It's been one of the main talking points all of fall camp, all of off season. What's your takeaway so far? I know you haven't gotten necessarily watching any of the practice stuff, but on paper, what are you thinking?
Well, let's see. Emmett's going to be the leader, right?
Yeah. I mean, Emmett is a solidified number one. Quentin Ives pulled his hamstring in the first practice of the spring, so he's been limited. But they got two guys that consistently get brought up by players and coaches, and that's Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey. Isaiah Mosey, they switched. He's a true freshman. They switched him from receiver. He asked the coaches in the spring, can I switch to running back? And after viewing both Mosey and Nelson, it's clear why they're being talked about.
Well, and the room was pretty crowded on receivers too.
Well, yeah, we started off talking about the wideouts. I mean,
so
they have
probably a big reason.
They have about around 8 guys.
They want to get playing time.
Yeah, well, you think about this running back room. So Emmett Johnson, we know, is going to be the solidified number one. But nowadays in college football, especially in the Big Ten, nobody's able to carry the football 20 to 25 times on a consistent basis without getting beat up and wear down. We saw that happen to Anthony Grant. They tried that with him, but you saw some flashes of him rushing for 150 yards. And then once Mickey took over, they really pounded him. And towards the end of the year, he wasn't the same.
Right. Well, the running backs, the big running backs don't seem to be in the game as much as they used to be. Well, I think a lot of that though is because of the changing of the rules and making it more favorable to the forward pass and the receivers right now.
A lot of those bigger guys are playing receiver. You aren't going to have. I mean, Quentin Ives actually, he's 6'3", 210 pounds running the football, but it's rare to see. You don't see an Eddie George type of guy. Rarely. Derrick Henry in the NFL, you do.
Yeah, well,
that's
Derrick
really
Henry is a freaking future. He goes back to the the Bo Jackson, those type punishing running backs, or who was the one that ran for Senate down in Georgia?
Herschel Walker.
Yes. Those days of those running back. And it's not because the people aren't there and there aren't the athletes for that. It's because of the change in the rules to favor the receiver and the forward pass. That's absolutely it. Yeah.
No, I think this is what I think Nebraska's we're gonna see some of. I'm not saying it's gonna be a stapling point. I want to talk about the tight ends, and I'm gonna kind of tie them into this. I think that you're going to see some split back stuff with Raiola, because you can have Emmett Johnson there. You can put in Isaiah Mosey, who has receiving traits, and you can do so much out of that split back. And then if you want, let's say they put in Heiner Carberg as an H-back beside Raiola to run crossbuck. I think that is going to be the maybe the new wrinkle we see out of Dana Holgerson's offense this year. I could be wrong, but I think that that's how it'll gel.
I just saw everything went black for a moment.
Well, you're talking now.
So right.
Did you hear what I was saying about the?
I've got one question for you. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Are you gonna challenge Riley Van Poppel to a driving contest at the golf course?
Yeah, I drive at about 400 yards. So
Rule was commenting he can honestly drive at over 300 yards.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty solid. I normally get about 4, sometimes 450. The Happy Gilmore swing.
Via the slice.
Well, it's Happy Gilmore swing.
Yeah,
and I can get it there, but usually it goes into an apartment window, but it gets there.
Yeah. All righty. I just thought I'd bring that
up. Okay. So we look at Nebraska's tight end room. How do you think this Heinrich Haarberg switch is going to pan out?
I actually do. And I think Holgerson is going to find a lot more ways to use him because he is way more creative.
For instance, where do you see Heinrich being the vertical threat that everybody's projecting, or do you think that he can be just an all-around tight end?
I think he can be all-around tight end, and I think the kid knows how to block too, which I question whether any of our receivers did last year for a while.
Well, until Dana really took over.
Yes.
And then you saw some better effort there. Oh, that's why Alex Bullock was out there. He wasn't a receiving threat whatsoever, but he was able to stock block.
Right. And it kind of, to me, that was a show of our receivers being very selfish.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's kind of the era of the NIL, I think. I mean, you brought in 2 guys and you paid them money to come be a receiver and didn't pan out necessarily to what you thought. Let's go back to tight ends. You've always talked about, last year you'd always bring up Luke Lindenmeyer early in the season and how you were impressed with him.
Yeah.
Now the question, we just talked about Heinrich Haarberg. We project being a legitimate receiving threat. Now the question is blocker. You think he's going to be a solid blocker. Do we think Lindenmeyer is going to be a receiving threat? Because that will open up a whole new box for Nebraska's offense.
I bet you that we might see, with Holgerson's creativity, you might see some double tight end sets.
Oh, I think you definitely will see some 12 personnel. And you could even see 3 with Carter Nelson.
So, if you bring in some tight ends to do on run downs, short downs, things like that, and maybe some sweeps, and get Barney in the game, and do some jet sweeps with the tight end leading that thing. A lot of things can happen.
All right. Well, let's do just some off-topic talk with that. How run the pass ratio? Dana says he ain't changing the offense. He's adapted. What type of run pass ratio do you envision Nebraska having?
Probably about 50. I'd say, man, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and
I'd say 40-60, 60-40. Maybe about 60% run, 40% pass.
Really? See, I'd almost put it more so 54% pass, 46% run. I think the running back depth is emerged. There's been some guys emerging, and even kind of mentioned Vincent Genatone's a guy to watch for the I formation. They move him from linebacker to running back, and he runs around 22.5 miles per hour. He said he's from North Platte, Nebraska.
Right,
big guy, but I still think that Nebraska's got these receiving threats, and I think they're going to be very aggressive with the pass attack.
I would agree, but we all know 3 things that can happen when you put the ball in the air, and 2 of them are bad. So if you can run the ball, they will.
Yeah, but I'll counter that when you have a quarterback that can normally pinpoint it across the field wherever you want it, and receivers that are faster than opposing defensive backs when you got a couple guys from Miami.
Right.
And then you have those guys such as Quinn Clark and Jeremiah Jones, who are true freshmen, Jeremiah is a true freshman, Quinn's a redshirt freshman, that are 6'5". So I think in the red zone, that's something we haven't really ever seen in many years, is the Nebraska consistently in the red zone able to snap it from the 20 and throw it up to receiver and then pinpoint it 50% of the time.
And a receiver tall enough to win the jump ball.
Well, they've had receivers tall enough, but if you think about the last guy to do it, maybe Stanley Morgan, but he wasn't even near as big.
Right.
A guy can maybe argue.
Yeah, that's the name on it.
Quincy Enyenwa, but
right. We won a bowl game with that guy.
What's that?
We won a bowl game with that guy.
Yeah, Nebraska. Well, that was that Georgia game.
Yep.
But before we close it out, what's the feeling for you of this team? Does it remind you of is it different water since the NIL era, or can you find a parallel to a different coaching era that where the vibe is going into the season?
I think the work ethic on this team is probably seeming in the work ethic of the coaching is probably going back to some of Pelini's early years.
See, that's where I found the biggest comparison, especially when I look at the offensive line depth. I mean, Bo Pelini had a good offensive line at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were able to rush for 200 yards a game. I don't care what anybody says. So I agree. I think and if you're a Nebraska fan, you got to feel good about that, because Bo Pelini won 9 games on a consistent basis. I mean, Nebraska wins 9 games this year. They're going to be at least the top 20, barring they get killed by a team. But
which will be a very storied turnaround if they can do it. If they can get to, I'd say 8 games this year, 8 wins is kind of a yawner. 9 games is an absolute turnaround success story.
Well, because you have to show improvement after winning 7.
Right.
I mean, Nebraska, let's say Nebraska goes 7-5. I think that season's a disappointment amongst not the fan base, and it will be, but amongst the coaching staff and this team. Roster talent-wise, this team could reach a ceiling of 10 wins in the regular season. And if they win 10 games in the Big Ten, they're probably going to be in the college football playoff. Now, they'll be a lower seed, but I think they'd be ranked in the top 12.
And the potential for winning 9 games and even 8 games, I would say, is if Dylan Raiola can stay healthy.
Oh, 100% on that. I will say TJ Lateef stepped up.
Okay. Well.
Okay. Well, any last remarks before we close it out for today?
Not really. It's good to be back on the air, thinking about football. Kind of looking forward to going to Kansas City.
Yeah, no, it should be good. We're waiting to hear back. Cincinnati's kind of being stiff on the credentials, so because that's who we have to do it through. So
you got to do it through Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're waiting. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Be sure to shoot me a follow on Twitter and shoot us some comments. So we'll be back next week. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.